Hey you guys, welcome to Sex-Linked Traits Notes. There is a document that I want you guys to take the notes. These are going to be just like the classwork notes that we take. So I'm going to talk and you guys are going to write with using the guided notes. So you should find those attached. So before we get started to talk defining what sex-linked traits are, let's talk about a couple of diseases that occur. And these are going to be due to sex-linked traits. So one is hemophilia. We're going to talk about hemophilia, and I want you guys to know that it is a disease that results in a person not being able to clot. So if you see here, there's a blood vessel, and what clots do is there are proteins and chemicals in the blood that allow for a clot to occur and to stop bleeding. And if you are a person that has hemophilia, or if you have a mutation on the gene that codes for clotting factor, then you're not going to be able to produce a clot. And so you're going to bleed out. And so these are called bleeds when you bleed out. And they're very difficult to stop. Oftentimes people have to go to the hospital. You can have internal bleeds or you can have an external bleed. So an external bleed will be like if you bump yourself um, and you start to bleed out externally. An internal bleed can be simply just your joints, like a knee or an elbow. Those can just start to spontaneously bleed. So this disease is a way of life. It changes the way that you live. Another one is color blindness, a little bit less dramatic. 1 in 12 males have color blindness, and 1 in 200 females have color blindness, and we'll talk about why that is so in just a little bit. So color blindness occurs when you cannot see colors in a normal way. So here's our example. If you are able to see color, you can very clearly see this 2 in the circle. If you have color blindness, there's a couple of different types of color blindness. Let's not get too deep into that. But you may not be able to see that 2 if you can't tell your reds and your greens and your blues apart. And so here, these are different versions of color blindness. And this is a result of the cells in your eyes not functioning properly. So you have 2 types of cells in your eyes, rods and cones. These are your rods here. They allow your eyes, so if light is coming in, here you can see that these are going to be lined along the back of your eye like this. And so when light and color come in, or color is light, comes in to your eye, the rods are going to be able to perceive the color, and the cones are going to be able to perceive, the rods are going to be able to perceive the light, and the cones are going to be able to perceive the color, and you have red, green, and blue cones. If any of those cones are malfunctioning, or there's a mutation in the gene that codes for those cells to work properly, then you're going to not be able to see color in a normal way, and this results in color blindness. So since we have that out of the way, let's get on to talking about human chromosomes and sex-linked traits. And as you guys know already, a genome is the full set of the material that an organism carries. So your entire genetic complement, your 46 chromosomes, every gene that you have is your genome. And in every single cell of your body, contains your entire genome. There are some exceptions, like red blood cells don't have a nucleus or DNA, but we're going to make those the exception, and you don't need to know that. So I want you to know that every cell in your body has your entire genome. So if it's a brain cell, if it's the cells on the tip of your toes, they all contain 46 chromosomes, 6 feet of DNA. And so 44 of those chromosomes in your genome are called autosomes. So here, 22 sets are going to be 44 chromosomes. And then we have our sex chromosomes, X and Y, or X and X. So the X and the Y chromosomes are our sex chromosomes. It is these sex chromosomes that determine the gender of an offspring. So females have an X and an X, and males have an X and a Y. So here's the X chromosome. You can see that the Y chromosome is quite a bit smaller. It's almost just a quarter of it, or a third. And so this is going to have an effect. Well, we also know, because of previous conversations, that life doesn't work so simply. So there are genetic disorders where some people are going to have extra X chromosomes or extra Y chromosomes, or maybe not enough. And so we say that females have XX and males have XY, but we already know that that's not 100% of the time. And so sex-linked traits, blood clotting and color vision, are both sex-linked traits. That means that they're on these sex chromosomes. And so if there's a mutation on these chromosomes, then the trait is not going to be able to be expressed properly. And so that's going to result in either hemophilia or color blindness. So if your blood clotting trait or your blood clotting allele has a mutation, it's going to result in hemophilia. If your color vision on your X or on your X chromosome has a mutation, that's going to result in color blindness. So the X chromosome, as we've discussed, is quite a bit larger. It has 1,200 genes on it, whereas the Y chromosome has only 140. So what does that mean? Since females have two X chromosomes, if one has a mutation, the other can compensate. So here, if there is a mutation, let's say for color vision or blood clotting, on this chromosome, on this X chromosome, well, as a female, you'll have a whole nother one that if there's a mistake, well, the second one can compensate. It'll express the healthy version of the gene. The mutated gene will not be expressed, but in the healthy version will. And so females kind of have this backup, this second chance, whereas males, they don't have that second chance. See here, there is, if this is your color vision gene, well, and there's a mutation on it, for a male, you don't have that second chance. You don't have a second version of that gene. And so therefore, males are going to be more likely to express color blindness and to have hemophilia. So for example, we talked about earlier that males have that 1 in 12 males have color blindness, which is interesting. And females, 1 in 200 females have color blindness. And so this is going to affect how we do some Punnett squares. In our next class, you're going to have homework where you're going to work some Punnett squares for sex-linked traits. So first, I'm going to show you how to do a Punnett square for a sex-linked trait. So now, if we're in a Word document, what I want you to do is to draw. You can click the draw. Remember, if you're on a PDF, you have to open with Adobe and click Comments. So I'm going to draw my Punnett square. And so here are the different versions that we can carry this trait. So if you're a female and you're normal, meaning you don't have hemophilia, so we're talking about hemophilia. So in humans, hemophilia is a sex-linked trait. Females can be normal, carriers, or have the disease. Males will either have the disease, but they will never be carriers. And since it's recessive, if you have the normal dominant allele, then you're going to express healthy. So let's show a cross of a man who has hemophilia with a woman who is a carrier. And we're going to talk about what a carrier is. But first, let's talk about a man. So a man is going to have an X and a Y chromosome. And the man has hemophilia. So that means he has the unhealthy recessive version. But that has to be on his X chromosome because blood clotting gene is not on the Y chromosome, so we don't put anything here. The female is a carrier. So females have an X and an X. And she's a carrier, meaning she has one healthy allele, which is going to be the dominant and therefore expressed, but she has an unhealthy allele, which is going to be to have hemophilia. So we call this a carrier because she carries the disease, but she doesn't express it. She doesn't have the disease. However, she can give it to an offspring. So let's say, what are the chances that they have a female or they have a daughter with hemophilia? And what are the chances they have a son with hemophilia? Let's do this cross. So we know that that's an X and an X. That's an X and an X. And here you can see why 50% of the population are males and 50% of the populations are females, because 50% here, XY, and 50% are XX. So we have, always put your capital letters first, big H, little h. Here we have little h, little h. We have big H and nothing. And we have little h. So what are the chances that we have a daughter with hemophilia? So she's going to have two lowercase h's because if there was a healthy allele, it would be expressed, but it's not. So they have a 1 in 4 chance of having a daughter with hemophilia. If they have a daughter, she has a 50% chance of having hemophilia. They have a 1 in 4 chance of having a son with hemophilia. If they have a boy, it's a 50% chance that he will have hemophilia. Your next homework assignment is going to be to do Punnett squares like this. So please make sure you draw this out on your notes and keep it because that's going to be helpful for your next homework assignment. I hope you guys have a great day, and be sure to put your notes in your Freshie Brush and turn it in the in bin.